When the emergency alert first flashed across my phone screen, I didn't know what to think. Do not look at the moon. Stay indoors. Cover all windows. The message was brief, in all caps, with a jarring, repetitive alarm tone that made my hands tremble. I stared at it for a moment, waiting for the alert to end, or change to something more familiar. Maybe an amber alert, or a severe weather warning. But instead, it remained there, frozen, and then repeated 5 minutes later. With more urgency, this is not a test. Do not look at the moon under any circumstances. At that point, I was still unsure whether it was real. Social media lit up with people reacting the same way. Confusion, humor, and disbelief. Memes popped up instantly. Some joked about the government hiding aliens, or that this was just the latest internet hoax. Others, more skeptical, assumed it was some kind of experimental psychological operation or viral marketing campaign for a movie. But something about the timing of the alert just after sundown felt wrong in a way I couldn't explain. A few of my neighbors gathered outside their houses, laughing nervously and pointing up at the sky. It wasn't fully dark yet, and the moon was just beginning to rise, a thin crescent shape low on the horizon. I remember how odd it looked, glowing with a strange hue, almost bluish. I turned away quickly, unsure why, but my stomach turned. Just from glancing at it. One of the neighbors, a man named Mark, waved at me and said, "You believe this nonsense?" Then he looked up directly at the moon and went quiet mid-sentence. I didn't think much of it until he turned and walked back inside his house without another word. Shutting the door behind him, the alert returned again at 8 p.m., this time broadcast through the TV and radio. Emergency sirens sounded in the distance, not a tornado warning, not a fire, but an unfamiliar, slow-pulsing wail that made my bones vibrate. I started to feel the fear settle in for real when the local news anchor came on screen, visibly shaken. He read from a teleprompter, avoiding the camera. "Stay away from windows. Do not look at the moon, even through reflections or photographs. We urge everyone to remain calm and await further instructions." And then the screen cut to black. That's when it sank in. This wasn't a hoax. Something was wrong. Something none of us understood. I rushed around the house, pulling curtains, closed, turning off lights, and taping black trash bags over windows. My heart raced as I taped the last window, my hands shaking. The night outside had gone eerily still. No cars, no dogs barking, no distant hum of airplanes. Just silence, broken by the slow, rhythmic tone of the emergency alert now playing. On every speaker, I texted my sister, who lived a few towns over. She didn't respond. I called her, but it went straight to voicemail. I called again, nothing. Then I texted some friends. 2 replied, joking about the warning. One even posted a selfie with the moon in the background, captioned, "What's the worst that could happen?" A few minutes later, that post disappeared. Then their entire account vanished. My stomach dropped. Around 10 p.m., I heard footsteps outside. Slow, dragging steps, like someone unsure of where they were going. I turned off the lights and peeked through a tiny gap in the curtain. I saw a figure across the street, standing perfectly still, facing my house. I couldn't make out their face, just a silhouette in the moonlight, which now glowed a deep, unnatural white. I closed the curtain quickly and backed away. A few seconds later, a soft knocking came at my door. Not urgent, just slow. Tap, tap, tap. It lasted for over 5 minutes. I didn't answer. Eventually, the knocking stopped, but I didn't sleep that night. I kept hearing distant voices, not from outside, but almost inside my head. They weren't saying words exactly, but whispering emotions, dread, hunger, confusion. It felt like something was brushing up against my thoughts, testing them. And always, I felt a pull to open the window, to take just one look at the moon by dawn. The emergency alert finally stopped. A new message appeared, telling us that the lunar event had ended, and we could now resume normal activity. No explanation, no follow-up, just silence. The official news channels reported a satellite malfunction, claiming the alert was triggered by a technical glitch. But everyone knew that wasn't true. The streets were quieter the next day, fewer cars. Several homes looked abandoned. The people who did return to work walked differently, slower, blank-faced, distracted. Some wore sunglasses, even indoors. When I tried to talk to one co-worker about the moon alert, he blinked slowly and said, "What alert?" Before walking away. The world hasn't felt right since then. The moon looks different now. Not every night, but sometimes. Like it's watching, waiting. And even though the government says everything is fine, I keep the curtains drawn every night and never ever look up. After the emergency alert warned us not to look at the moon, most people didn't take it seriously. The idea was too absurd, too sci-fi, to be real. But the moment I saw my roommate Eric stare up at the night sky, everything changed. It happened. Just before midnight, I had managed to block out every window in our apartment with bed sheets, cardboard, and duct tape. I even covered the peephole in our door. But Eric, always the curious one, had left a small gap in the kitchen window uncovered, just to see, he had said with a laugh. I begged him not to look. The alert was clear, and the silence outside made me feel like something was deeply wrong, but he couldn't help himself. He moved toward the window slowly, with the kind of hesitant interest you show when watching a car crash. Morbid fascination mixed with disbelief. He tilted the blinds open just a crack, glanced up at the moon, and everything about him shifted in seconds. His shoulders tensed, then dropped, and he stood still for a long time, longer than was natural. I called his name, but he didn't answer. When I touched his shoulder, he turned round slowly, with an eerie calmness in his eyes. They were glassy, blank, almost too wide, and for a split second I thought he was about to collapse. But he didn't. He smiled, not a warm, friendly smile. This one was stretched, hollow, and far too wide, like he didn't know how to make the expression properly anymore. His voice, when he finally spoke, didn't sound like Eric. It was lower, flat, and had a strange echo to it, as if it wasn't coming from his mouth, but from somewhere behind it. He said, "It's beautiful. You should see it too." I backed away instinctively. He took a step forward. "You don't understand. We're free now. It's not what they told us." I ran into my room and locked the door. I heard him pacing in the kitchen for a while, humming a tune I'd never heard him hum before. It sounded like a lullaby, but broken and out of rhythm. Then he went silent. For hours, I heard nothing but the soft creaking of the floorboards. I didn't sleep. I sat against the door, holding a kitchen knife, trying to convince myself this was a bad dream or some elaborate prank. But in my gut, I knew Eric wasn't the same anymore. When morning came, I opened the door carefully. Eric was gone. The front door was wide open, but there were no signs of a struggle. Just the smell of something metallic, almost like blood, but not quite. The kitchen window had been completely pulled open, and all the blankets and coverings I had placed were torn off. I called the police, but they didn't arrive for hours. When they did, they barely looked around. The officer seemed distracted, uninterested, and he asked strange questions like, did he mention hearing whispers, or did he say anything about seeing another version of himself in the sky? When I said yes, he nodded like it was expected. I asked where Eric might have gone, and he just said, sometimes they wander, sometimes they wait. Then he left without writing a report. I checked social media again and found hundreds of similar stories. People looking at the moon and changing. Some turned violent, some wandered off, others just stood still for hours, whispering things to themselves. The strange part, by the next day, most of the posts were gone. Entire accounts were deleted, and media outlets stopped reporting on it. Even the emergency alert was wiped from history. No archive, no screenshots. On official government pages, as if it never happened. That night, I stayed up listening to the hum of the fridge and watching shadows move across the walls. Even though nothing was moving in the apartment, I couldn't stop thinking about the way Eric looked at me. Not with fear or anger, but with complete certainty, like he knew something I didn't, like he had seen a truth too large for my mind to grasp. Part of me wanted to believe he was okay, that wherever he was, he had found peace. But deep down, I knew that wasn't the case. A few days later, I received a voicemail from a number I didn't recognize. It was Eric's voice, but again, distorted, as if underwater. He whispered, "You're next. You dream about it, don't you?" I deleted the message, but every night since, I've had the same dream. I'm standing outside, alone, under a massive moon that seems to pulse like a heartbeat. I hear voices all around me, calling me by name, repeating it over and over. When I wake up, I'm always facing the window, even though I go to sleep facing the wall. I've started noticing people on the street acting strangely. Some walk with blank expressions, others whisper to themselves in a language I don't recognize. Their eyes often glance toward the sky, even during the day. I've begun to wonder if they saw it too, and, just like Eric, were changed forever. Something was unleashed that night. It didn't stop when the alert ended. It just went quiet, waiting. Watching, like the moon itself is alive and patient, whispering to those who dared to look, and waiting for the rest of us to follow. After the emergency alert told us not to look at the moon, the world fell into an eerie silence, but my curiosity nearly destroyed me. On the third night, after staying locked indoors with every window blacked out, I began to feel like I was losing my mind. The silence was unnerving. There were no cars on the road, no sounds from neighbors, no barking dogs, nothing. I checked the news repeatedly, but nothing new was being broadcast. Channels that had been active before the alert were suddenly offline, looping weather updates or pre-recorded documentaries. It felt like the world had paused, and I was the only one noticing. That night, around 2 a.m., I heard a knock at the front door. It wasn't frantic. It was slow, deliberate. 3 knocks, a pause, then 2 more. My heart stopped. No one had come to my house in days. No one should have been out. I sat in silence, holding my breath, waiting for it to go away. But then, a voice came from the other side. It was calm, almost cheerful. "I know you're in there. You've done so well, but it's time now. Come see it. It's beautiful tonight." The voice was familiar. At first I thought it was Eric, but Eric was gone. Then I realized with horror that it was my voice. Identical, perfectly mimicking my tone and rhythm. I didn't answer. I crawled away from the door and into the hallway, my hands trembling. I heard movement outside, soft footsteps pacing back and forth. Then the knock came again, this time louder. Don't be scared, you're ready. We all are. You've felt it, haven't you? The pull, the calling. I covered my ears, trying to block it out, but the voice wasn't just outside anymore. It was in my head, clear, calm, and persistent. I retreated into my room, but I didn't feel safe. Every shadow in the room seemed to move slightly, just enough to make me question what was real. My reflection in the mirror looked normal at first, but as I stared, I noticed its mouth twitching, slightly delayed from mine. I turned the mirror around and tried to ignore it, but the feeling lingered. Something was watching me through it from the other side. Something that knew everything about me. Over the next few days, I started hearing whispers even during the day. They weren't loud, but always present, like background static, and they spoke in a rhythm, almost like chanting. Sometimes they said my name. Other times they spoke nonsense, fragments of sentences, repeated again and again. He is coming. The eye sees all. The moon has opened. My sleep became fragmented. When I closed my eyes, I dreamed of the sky cracking open like glass, revealing a swirling vortex of light and shadow behind the moon. I saw people floating upward, their eyes wide and unblinking, their mouths open in silent screams. I always woke up gasping for breath. One evening, I received a letter slid under my door. No stamp, no return address, just a single sentence: join. The others on the rooftop tonight witnessed the rising. My apartment building had a rooftop garden that hadn't been used since the lockdown. I considered ignoring the letter, but something inside me, something that didn't feel entirely like me, urged me to go. At midnight, I climbed the stairs, slowly, silently. As I reached the door to the rooftop, I heard low humming, dozens of voices chanting the same rhythm I had heard in my dreams. I opened the door a crack and looked out. A crowd of people stood, in a circle, their heads tilted back, eyes locked onto the moon. The moon itself was enormous, far larger than normal, and it pulsed like it was breathing. Its surface rippled and strange, shifting patterns danced across it like clouds made of fire. The people on the roof didn't move. Some had their arms stretched out as if in prayer. One of them, without turning, said in my exact voice, "You made it, just in time." I slammed the door shut and ran back down the stairs. As I reached my apartment, I realized I had left my door open. Inside stood a figure. At first, I thought it was an intruder, but when it turned around, it was me. My exact face, my exact body, but its eyes glowed faintly, and its skin had a faint shimmer like it was not entirely solid. It smiled soon. It said, "You'll understand. We're becoming one." I locked myself in the bathroom. That's where I've been hiding since. I've taped the door shut, covered every surface, and refused to look at anything reflective. I don't know how long I've been here anymore. Time feels distorted. I hear voices every night, whispering from the other side of the door, calling me to come outside, to look up, to finally join them. But I won't. I've seen what happens. I've heard my own voice trying to trick me. Whatever's out there, it's not the moon anymore. It's something else, something wearing its skin, calling out to us in our own voices, trying to pull us into its light. On the fourth night, I made the mistake of turning on my phone, thinking maybe the emergency alert system had been updated with new instructions, or that someone had figured out what was really going on. I hadn't used it since the first alert warned us, do not look at the moon. My battery was almost dead, and I had kept the phone powered off to preserve it in case I needed to call for help. But curiosity got the better of me. I turned it on, dimmed the brightness, and muted the volume. What I saw next almost drove me insane. The moment my phone booted up, it began vibrating with hundreds of unread messages and missed calls. Most of them were from contacts I hadn't spoken to in years. People from school, old co-workers, even family members I knew were long dead. The message previews were all the same. Look outside. Have you seen it yet? You won't believe how beautiful it is. My hands trembled as I scrolled through them, each message more frantic, more demanding than the last. Then a call came in. No name, no number, just unknown. I froze. I knew I shouldn't answer, but my finger moved on its own. The second I picked up, there was silence on the other end. Then, after a few seconds, I heard breathing. Ragged, strained breathing, like someone on the edge of collapse. And then a whisper, so faint I had to strain to hear it. It sees you now. You let it in. The call disconnected on its own. I dropped the phone. A few seconds later, the screen lit up on its own and opened the front-facing camera. The image showed my face pale, gaunt, eyes wide with fear, but behind me, something flickered. A shape, a smear of darkness that seemed to bend the walls around it. It leaned closer in the frame, reaching toward me. I spun around, but there was nothing there. My room was empty. But when I looked back at the phone, the shape was closer, its hand almost on my shoulder. I threw the phone into the closet and slammed the door shut, but the damage was done. That night, I began seeing the figure even without the phone. In mirrors, in windows, in the reflection of my coffee spoon. Always slightly out of focus, always just behind me. Its presence came with a pressure in my skull, like something was trying to burrow inside. The real horror began when I started hearing the static. Not just normal white noise, but something deeper, almost alive. It pulsed, rising and falling. In strange patterns, hidden within the sound were whispers. They didn't speak English. It was a language I couldn't recognize, but my mind somehow understood it. The words didn't translate, they infected. I began repeating them in my sleep, according to a voice recording I accidentally made one night. My own voice chanting nonsense phrases in a rhythm that didn't match my heartbeat. Faster, like something else had taken control. I tried destroying the phone, but it wouldn't break. I smashed it with a hammer, ran it under water, microwaved it. Each time, it powered back on after a few minutes, fully intact. The camera would turn on by itself and record me from different angles. I'd wake up to dozens of videos showing me asleep, or what I thought was me. In one clip, I watched myself stand up in the middle of the night, walk to the window, and open it. The moonlight poured in. I stared up at it, unmoving, for nearly 40 minutes. But I don't remember doing any of that. I've since sealed every opening with black paint and cloth. I haven't seen the outside world in days. But even in this darkness, the light finds a way in. Flickers of silvery glow seep through the cracks, and with it comes the static again, louder now. The whispers no longer wait for sleep. They speak to me constantly, telling me things about people I know, deep secrets I was never supposed to hear. My neighbor buried something beneath her floorboards. The man across the hall used to talk to his dead wife. The moon sees them, too. It sees us all. Then came the dream. Or vision. I don't know what to call it. I was standing in a place that wasn't Earth. The sky was a swirling ocean of stars. And the moon, or what used to be the moon, hovered above like a monstrous eye. It blinked slowly, the surface rippling like liquid. I saw others there. With me, dozens, maybe hundreds of people, all of them standing perfectly still, eyes locked upward, their bodies twitching like puppets held by unseen strings. They spoke in unison, a single word, over and over. A word I dare not write. I woke up screaming. My phone now displays the moon on every screen, even when turned off. The image changes slightly each time I glance at it. Sometimes it looks like an eye, sometimes a mouth, sometimes just darkness. I've stopped looking altogether. But the voice that came through the phone that night, it's inside me now. I hear it when I blink. I feel it when I try to sleep. It hums in the back of my skull like a low, cosmic signal, tuning me to something vast and cold and ancient. I understand now. The moon is no longer just a celestial object. It's a gate, a watcher, a calling force. It wants us to see it, not with our eyes, but with something deeper, something spiritual. And the phone, that once harmless tool, has become its channel. A digital mirror for its will. It doesn't need our eyes anymore. It's already inside. The final warning came not through a screen, not in a dream, but through a knock at the door. It was just past midnight when I heard it. 3 slow, heavy knocks. Not like a visitor or a neighbor. This was rhythmic, almost ceremonial, as if something ancient was announcing itself. I didn't move. I didn't answer. I held my breath in the silence, hoping it would go away. But then it knocked again. And this time, I felt it in my bones. The air in the room thickened, vibrating with low frequencies I could feel in my teeth. It was like being inside a speaker turned to the lowest, deepest hum. The knock came a third time, but now it was from inside the apartment. I spun around. The front door hadn't opened. There was no one there, but the knock had clearly echoed from within these 4 walls. I began backing away, but a soft voice whispered my name from behind me. Not a scream, not a growl, just a gentle, eerie familiarity. Like someone who had always known me. I turned, and no one was there. Just the window. Blackout curtains sealed it completely. No light leaked through, but the curtains moved slightly, as if something just behind them had exhaled. I couldn't bring myself to look. I didn't want to pull them back, but I could feel something on the other side, watching, breathing, and then it whispered again. Not my name this time, something else. A phrase in that same strange language I had heard in the static. The moment I heard it, my vision distorted. The walls rippled, and I collapsed to my knees. Time felt like it unraveled. I blacked out when I woke. It was morning. The sun should have been up, but everything outside was still pitch black. My phone had powered itself back on and displayed a new message. It's time, just those 2 words. I didn't touch it, but the device began, vibrating violently on its own. The screen flashed between static, the moon's surface, and distorted images of myself staring back. Only not quite me, my face, but wrong. The eyes were completely white. No iris, no pupil. Just glowing orbs, twitching side to side. Then, The phone's speaker crackled to life again. This time, there was no whisper, just a scream. Not a human one. Something raw, like metal tearing through bone, like galaxies grinding against each other. It was rage and grief and hunger all at once. I threw the phone across the room, but the scream didn't stop. It grew louder. It wasn't coming from the phone anymore. It was coming from the walls, the pipes, the air itself. I scrambled to block my ears, but it didn't help. The sound was inside me now. My body convulsed. I tasted iron. My vision blurred, and when it returned, I saw them. The others. My apartment walls melted into something else, and I could see into places that weren't mine. Hundreds of people, maybe thousands, all in different rooms, all staring up, their eyes wide open. None of them blinked. Some were crying blood, others smiles so wide their lips split open. All of them were facing the same direction, toward the moon. I realized then we were all being summoned, pulled mentally, spiritually, towards something we couldn't escape. The emergency alert had never been about protection. It was a warning for containment. Not to keep the moon from reaching us, but to stop us from reaching it. And once we broke the rules, even once, we were no longer under protection. We became beacons, carriers of its will. It used us to find others. In the center of every room I saw was a reflection, a mirror, a phone, a black screen. That's how it connects. Through reflections, through attention. The more you notice it, the stronger its grip becomes. That's why it wants you to look at the moon, because the moment you do, you become part of it. And once you belong to it, you can never look away again. I tried everything to stop it. Destroyed every reflective surface, smashed all the lights, sealed every crack. But still, it finds a way in, through sound, through thought, through dreams. It speaks through the people I love now. I see my mother's face in the dark corners of the hallway, whispering to me that she's found peace. I hear my dead sister's voice humming lullabies I haven't heard since childhood. The thing knows how to break me, not with fear, but with memory. With grief, it doesn't need to chase me anymore. I carry it within me. Every time I close my eyes, I see that lunar surface, twisting, pulsing, blinking like an eye that never sleeps. I know I'm changing. My thoughts don't always feel like mine. Sometimes I wake up in strange positions, standing perfectly still with my head tilted back as if I've been watching something through the ceiling for hours. I've started speaking aloud in that same language, unconsciously, like reciting prayers I never learned. The fifth warning is this: the end begins, not when we see it, but when it sees us. The moon isn't just watching, it's choosing. It's selecting who will carry its signal and who will disappear screaming. And once chosen, you'll never know what part of you is still human. It doesn't come for all at once. It comes one by one, in whispers, in light, in dreams. And the worst part is, you'll want to see it again. Because now, I do.